Disney's Sleeping Beauty. In a faraway land, long ago, King Stephen and his fair queen longed for a child. Finally, their wish was granted, and they had a daughter. They named her Aurora, after the dawn, and she filled their lives with sunshine. A few days later, at Aurora's christening, King Stephen and his queen welcomed jolly King Hubert and his son Phillip to meet the new princess. The two kings wished to unite their kingdoms and decided that one day Phillip and Aurora would marry. 3 fairies, Flora, Fauna and Merryweather, arrived at the castle to bestow their gifts upon the baby. "Little princess," said Flora, waving her wand, "my gift shall be the gift of beauty." Fauna was next. "Tiny princess, my gift shall be the gift of song," she announced. Suddenly, just as Merryweather stepped up to the crib, a strong gust of wind swept through the royal hall. There was a flash of lightning, and out of a plume of green fire and smoke, the evil Maleficent appeared. The sorceress was very angry at not being invited to Aurora's christening, so she had a gift of her own for the young princess. "Listen well, all of you," declared Maleficent. "The princess shall indeed grow in beauty and grace, but before the sun sets on her 16th birthday, she shall prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and die." "Seize that creature," cried King Stephen to the palace guards. But Maleficent laughed and disappeared in another flash of lightning and green flames. With only Merryweather's magical gift remaining, the curse could only be softened. Merryweather promised that if Aurora pricked her finger, she would not die, but fall into a deep sleep. "You shall wake when true loves kiss, the spell shall break," added Merryweather. However, still fearful for his daughter's life, King Stephen had every spinning wheel in the kingdom burned. The fairies also had a plan to help stop Maleficent from harming Aurora. They would disguise themselves as peasants and raise the princess in an abandoned cottage deep in the forest with no magic. The king and queen knew it was for the best, but they watched with heavy hearts as their only child disappeared into the night. Maleficent and her henchmen searched tirelessly for 16 years, but never found the princess. If the sorceress didn't find Aurora, the curse might never come true. So, on the day of Aurora's 16th birthday, Maleficent turned to her pet raven. "You're my last hope," she said. "Circle far and wide. Search for a maid of 16 with hair of sunshine and lips red as the rose. Go and do not fail me." Meanwhile, a beautiful and happy girl named Briar Rose greeted the day from her cottage window. It was her 16th birthday. She did not know that she was really the Princess Aurora, and that her aunties were fairies. For her birthday, the fairies wanted to surprise Briar Rose with a cake and a dress, and to tell her the truth about her royal identity. To get her out of the cottage, they asked her to pick berries in the forest. "But I picked berries yesterday," said Briar Rose suspiciously. "Oh, but we need some more, dear," said the fairies. "Lots more." Briar Rose went on her way, leaving her aunties to arrange her surprise. Briar Rose walked through the forest, singing a lovely song, and confessed to her animal friends that she had met a handsome prince, but only in her dreams. At that moment, Prince Phillip and his horse, Samson, were riding through the forest when Phillip heard Briar Rose's beautiful singing. Suddenly, Samson jumped too high and the prince fell into a stream, becoming soaking wet. He took off his hat, cape and boots so that they could dry. But when Phillip wasn't looking, the animals took them and dressed up a make-believe prince. "Your Highness," said Briar Rose, laughing and playing along. Prince Phillip followed the sound of Briar Rose's beautiful voice and soon found the young woman. Though she was surprised to see the prince at first, Briar Rose then smiled and took his hand. The pair then twirled and danced together, just like in one of Briar Rose's dreams. Phillip and Briar Rose were nestled in each other's arms when suddenly Briar Rose realized she needed to get home. "When will I see you again?" asked Phillip. "Tonight," she replied, "at the cottage in the glen." Neither knew the other's name, but only that they had fallen instantly and deeply in love. Back at the cottage, both the cake and the dress had been disasters. Merryweather insisted that finally they use some magic again. "I've had enough of this nonsense," she said, fetching the wands for the first time in years. "I think she's right," agreed Fauna, looking at the mess they'd made. "Here they are, good as new," said Merryweather, waving the wands in the air. Sure enough, a beautiful dress soon appeared. However, Merryweather and Flora disagreed on its colour, and as the dress kept changing from pink to blue and back again, the magic struck the cauldron by the fire, sending sparks shooting in the chimney. Just at that moment, Maleficent's raven flew past and saw the sparks. He quickly took off to alert the sorceress. When Briar Rose returned home, the fairies surprised her with the dress and the cake, but she couldn't wait to tell her aunties about the wonderful young man she'd just met. "Oh no," said Fauna, "you're already betrothed to Prince Phillip." "How could I marry a prince?" asked Briar Rose. "I would have to be a princess." "You are, dear," replied Flora. "You are Princess Aurora, and tonight we must take you back to your parents." As the evening approached, Aurora dutifully accompanied the fairies to the castle, where King Stephen and King Hubert were already celebrating Aurora's return. However, Aurora's thoughts were of the young man she had met and fallen in love with that day. The sun had not yet set, so the fairies sneaked Aurora into the castle. They presented her with a golden crown, but she wept, heartbroken at being separated from her one true love. "Let her have a few moments alone," said Flora, leading her sisters out of the room. Once they had gone, Maleficent appeared and conjured a glowing green ball that put Aurora into a trance and made the princess follow it as it floated out of the room. Aurora passed through a secret panel in the fireplace, leaving the fairies unable to follow. She made her way slowly, step by step, up a winding staircase, following the glowing ball of light. At the top of the staircase, Aurora entered a dark room and came face to face with a spinning wheel and a spindle. With her hand held out in front of her, the bewitched Aurora approached the spinning wheel. Maleficent's voice filled the room. "Touch the spindle," she said. "Touch it, I say." Aurora obeyed. When the fairies finally reached the room, they found Maleficent standing in triumph beside the fallen princess. "You poor, simple fools," she said, a cruel smile spreading across her face, "thinking you could defeat the mistress of evil." Then with a wicked laugh, she disappeared. The three fairies took Aurora to a room in a high tower where they laid her down gently in a bed. Then they placed a red rose in Aurora's hands as tears ran down their cheeks. "King Stephen and the Queen will be heartbroken when they finally find out," sobbed Merryweather. "They're not going to find out," replied Flora. Using their magic, the fairies swiftly flew around the castle, placed everyone into a deep sleep until Aurora could wake up again. The fate of everyone in the castle now rested on someone waking the princess. But in the forest, as arranged, Phillip and Samson arrived at the cottage. Inside, Maleficent and her henchmen were waiting. The evil fairy was not taking any chances that the princess's young man would save her. The henchmen quickly tied Phillip up. "This is a pleasant surprise," said Maleficent, looking at her prisoner. "I set my trap for a peasant, and lo, I catch a prince." Maleficent had Phillip thrown into her dark, cold dungeon and revealed to him Briar Rose's true identity and her fate. As soon as Maleficent left, the fairies appeared. They freed Phillip, then armed him with the enchanted shield of virtue and the mighty sword of truth. As they rushed up the dungeon steps, they encountered the raven, who called out for the henchmen. With the help of the fairies, Prince Phillip bravely fought his way out of the castle. Flora turned boulders into bubbles, and a volley of sharp arrows into harmless blue flowers. Safely away from Maleficent's castle, Samson took Prince Phillip to find and rescue Aurora. Determined to keep Phillip from reaching the sleeping princess, Maleficent surrounded King Stephen's castle with a giant wall of thorny bushes. The prince cut through them with the mighty sword of truth. Maleficent was furious. "Now shall you deal with me, my prince," she called before turning herself into an enormous, fire-breathing dragon. He used the enchanted shield of virtue to protect himself and Samson from the heat and force of Maleficent's terrible flames. The thorny bushes began to burn from Maleficent's fire. With flames rising all around him, Phillip needed to move to higher ground. He climbed a cliff as Maleficent charged after him. Phillip prepared for the battle to continue. Prince Phillip took aim and valiantly threw his sword, striking Maleficent in the chest. She lunged towards him, but stumbled from her injuries. Phillip scrambled out of the way as the cliff face crumbled, and Maleficent fell to her death. The prince lost no time in getting to Aurora's bedside. He knelt down and gently kissed his true love. Her eyes fluttered open and she smiled at him. The fairies clapped with glee. The spell was broken and the rest of the castle began to wake up too. All eyes were on Phillip and Aurora as they walked down the stairs to the royal hall. They looked so much in love. "It's Aurora! She's here!" exclaimed King Stephen. The prince and the princess bowed before the throne. Then Aurora ran to embrace her parents for the first time in 16 years. Phillip and Aurora danced as the kingdom rejoiced. Together the prince and princess lived happily ever after. The end.